Hello, my name is Alex Bowie and I'm an undergraduate at the University of Oregon studying neuroscience. Under the guidance of Dr. Philip Fisher in the Stress Neurobiology and Prevention Lab, my project examines the validity of the simple interactions tool in evaluating responsive caregiving behaviors. Early environmental circumstances play a very important role in brain development, and adverse childhood experiences have been shown to impair cognitive functioning. But research has shown that responsive caregiving can serve as a buffer to mitigate these damaging effects and also improve social, emotional, and cognitive outcomes among at-risk youth. Early intervention programs have recently begun implementing observational coding practices by videotaping interactions between parents and their children and using video coding assessments to evaluate various aspects of caregiving. One of the assessments used in this context is the Simple Interactions Tool, or SI tool, which evaluates the quality of child and caregiver interaction. But despite the growing use of the SI tool within a number of different contexts, the underlying properties of the tool itself are not well defined. To address this, our study aims to evaluate the validity of the SI tool through correlational analyses. Filmed interactions from 138 caregiver infant dyads were evaluated during book reading and free play tasks. Videos were coded using a combination of glossaries and flowcharts to code interactions on a moment-to-moment scale using the Connection and Reciprocity subscales of the SI tool. Correlational analyses were then utilized to determine shared variance between scores of each subscale. The Connection subscale measures the degree of shared emotional connectedness and is divided into low, medium, and high scores. As seen in Figure 1, a code of CX is given if there is little to no visible emotional connection. A code of CY is assigned if there is evidence of connection but not necessarily matched, and CZ if there is mutual emotional awareness between the caregiver and child. The Reciprocity subscale measures the quality of back-and-forth interaction and is scored similarly to connection using X, Y, and Z scores. As seen in Figure 2, RX scores are given if both parties are disengaged with one another, RY scores are assigned if interactions are primarily one-sided, and RZ scores are given when there is mutual back-and-forth interaction where both the caregiver and child are equally engaged. Our analyses prompted two primary findings, highlighted in yellow and green in Table 1. In yellow, we found that connection reading scores are only weakly correlated with connection free play scores, with no correlation between CX reading and CX free play whatsoever. This indicates that the construct of emotional connection is inconsistent across tasks. In green, we found that both CZ free play and CZ reading are minimally correlated with RZ free play. What this tells us is that there's very little overlap between these two measures, and that levels of emotional connection are not necessarily indicative of levels of reciprocity, despite both being markers of responsive caregiving. We expected to find strong correlations between high scores of connection and reciprocity, given that both of these constructs are indicators of responsive caregiving, but what we found was that these subscales are likely measuring two separate but parallel domains of responsive caregiving. We also expected that connection scores would remain consistent across tasks, as both reading and free play activities were coded using the same connection subscale. But our results suggest that the actual construct of emotional connection is situational and will vary across different kinds of interactions. Our findings highlight that the concept of responsive caregiving is both multifaceted and difficult to accurately portray. We thought there would be a clear relationship between connection and reciprocity, but what we realized was that each of these constructs are important pieces to a larger puzzle. The fact that the constructs of emotional connection and reciprocity are not predictive of one another, even within the same assessment tool, emphasizes that responsive caregiving is both full of nuance and not well understood. What we do know is that responsive caregiving does have a positive impact on parent and child outcomes, but the underlying mechanisms of caregiving responsible for these improved outcomes are unclear. This research explores only 2 of the 4 subscales of the SI tool, the others being opportunity to grow, which involves a caregiver's ability to provide guidance and support during challenging tasks, and inclusion, which relates to dividing interactions between groups of children. Future research should incorporate these 2 subscales to investigate whether responsive caregiving can be more accurately characterized using all 4 dimensions of the SI tool, or if the constructs of opportunity to grow and inclusion are uniquely related in other ways. Thank you for listening.